Welcome to Trash Compactor. I'm Josh, and we're back. We're back with our first episode of 2025, and what a year it has already been. I think it's safe to say that these are dark times, but I think, or I hope, the interview I'm about to share with you might at least be a little dosage of the cure for what ails us and the fuel that we need to keep going forward. On this podcast, we've talked a lot about how Star Wars has inspired works of passionate creativity, be it in the form of fan art, fan fiction, fan films, and today we're going to be hearing about some Star Wars influenced music. Not too long ago, I had the extreme pleasure of interviewing a Star Wars folk group called Folk the Empire, and I am excited beyond measure to share that interview with you today. These guys are insanely special and make amazing music, and I just love everything about them and what they do, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with them. So, without further ado, Trash Compactor is proud to present Folk the Empire. Welcome, Folk the Empire, to Trash Compactor. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Absolute honor.
The honor is all mine, believe me. So if you guys could introduce yourselves and just say what you do in the band or what you're responsible for.
All right. My name is Erik, and I play banjo. I'm sort of the swirling epicenter of Folk the Empire. We'll get into that a little later. But so I play banjo.
My name is Chris, and I play guitar.
And my name's
he
Mike.
dragged me into it.
Yeah. My name's Mike. I play cajon, sometimes backup vocals. You also sing backup vocals as well, Chris?
Yeah, so I came across you guys some social media feed. Obviously, I'm into Star Wars. I do a Star Wars podcast. And so the algorithm serves me Star Wars content and like anti-fascist content. You guys are at the intersection of those two things, which I want to get into a little bit later, but I can't think of another way to start this conversation other than asking you, how does one come to start a Star Wars folk band?
One follows a dream of playing the banjo, and through the banjo, I don't want to go too far into it, but I will say that the style of banjo I play, clawhammer, takes us back to like 1880, 1890, all the way to the 1920s and 30s. And it has a legacy as folk music and fight music and the news of the land. And so I ended up having to do a writer's workshop, and someone suggested that I make a song. I had nothing really to write about. I grew up in punk rock. Chris grew up in punk rock. We both played in bands together.
Can we cut that out of the episode?
And so I just started goofing around. And I think the first song I wrote was Rebel Scum, which was just my idea of what a rebel recruitment song would sound like. I pictured somebody sitting in the barracks, wailing away on some kind of instrument and just rallying people with this song. And so that's really the impetus of it. That stayed in that scope for a couple months, where I wrote maybe 5 or 6 songs. And I don't know if you've heard the band Sleemo at all. They are like a heavy metal band. They sing all in Huddies. And they're they're from our area. They're from Rhode Island. And so I ended up just finding them through the algorithm. They invited us to play a show. Well, they invited me to play a show. And I got so scared that I was like, I need more people. So I recruited Mike on the cajon, who, you want to talk a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in bands before, and Erik and I were always looking for some sort of creative outlet together. We have a lot of shared interest. So when Erik was talking about his music, and I offered at some point, whether it was, to be in a band or record something for him, to add percussion to his music if it was something that he wanted to do. So just invited him over one day, brought his banjo and played some of his music. And I had a cajon sitting in my house. I never really played it before. It was given to me by my father-in-law. But I, did a little bit of research, and by the time Erik had come over, I had a relative idea of what it was capable of, not necessarily what I was capable of, but we sort of just immediately had some sort of musical connection there between his music and just what I had to bring to the table. Now, I am by no means a traditional cajon player. I don't know the first thing about the right or wrong way to play. But there was just something that just seemed to click, something that connected. It was pretty awesome.
And so we rounded out between the two of us, I think 4 or 5 songs in one night. We just sat down and played, and it came together. And then Chris, you want to talk about your background at all?
Sure. So I played with Erik for a long time ago in another band in a galaxy farther away. And when he first started playing, he wanted to record some of the songs, and he was nervous about recording with someone. So he just kind of came to my house, and we went into my back room, and we recorded the first couple songs that he recorded on and put up on Bandcamp. Then he went and hung out with Mike for a bit, and we were hanging out separate from this. And he said, "Man, I hung out with Mike, and the songs sound really, really good with cajon. Do you want to play guitar?" And I was not doing anything, and I said, "Sure."
I was holding my breath to see where you were going to go with that. I was like, "Oh, come on, please sell this." And so, so it came together, and
Quickly,
within the space of about 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was probably closer to 4 or 5.
4 weeks.
But we played like a pre-show before that Slimo show.
Yeah.
But it was really quick, considering we're all, like 40s, 50s. We all have full-time jobs. This guy's got 2 little kids. He's got like his school children and all that stuff.
And and then within a couple weeks after becoming a trio, we ended up playing in front of a sold-out crew of 250 metalheads. And weirdly enough, that's become our bread and butter, is playing metal shows. I think everything we've done so far has either been at metal record stores or opening for metal bands. It's the crossover there. I think the metal community is fantastically curious, and I think that they're great with acceptance of whatever kind of crazy route people want to go, more so than say like the traditional folk community and stuff like that.
Oh, that's interesting. You guys said so much. I was writing down so many questions.
We've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for their interviews. We practice all the time.
I understand. Mike, real quick, for the benefit of our listeners, I didn't know what a cajon was. Could you just explain what that is?
Yeah. So I didn't know what a cajon was either.
Okay, good. I don't feel bad then.
But traditionally, it's a wooden box that the percussionist sits on top of, and is traditionally played with hands. There's multiple kinds. Mine has metal snares inside, similar to a snare drum that you would see on a traditional drum set. So it's got a little bit more of what you would, I guess, think of with a drum set sound. So I do use a pedal, like you would on a traditional drum set for a low end bass sound. And towards the top, there's metal snares. So when I hit it, it sounds like a regular drum, so to say. So it's been a challenge adapting what I've done in the past, being in rock and metal bands, to just playing on a wooden box with some brushes and 1 foot. But yeah, it's certainly interesting to see me just sitting on a box, hitting it with my hands.
So, Mike and Chris, did you have any background in folk music prior? Doesn't sound like it.
I have listened to Simon and Garfunkel in the past because my parents like it.
I would say I found 2 people who have no interest in folk music playing some of the most fun folk music that's being made right now. And it's kind of a blessing.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I listen to a lot of just basically kind of DIY music. So it can be hardcore, punk, or just indie rock, that kind of thing. And it's just interesting to play something a little different. I think that's what I like about it.
Yeah, no folk background here at all. 0.
It's really interesting to me because there are so many things going on here simultaneously, all of which are really interesting to me.
Though, Eric, I do have to admit that I myself am not a huge fan of folk music. I have a respect for it, obviously, because as you alluded to, it does have a history. You used the terms fight music and news of the land. And certainly, I'm most familiar with it from the protest music of
Mhm.
like the mid 20th century. And then obviously there's the Star Wars connection that actually dovetails really nicely because Star Wars is about, political and social upheaval. And it also has that DIY aesthetic that you were talking about, that use universe thing. And so, what I think is so cool about your music is that you are mining the like really fertile raw material in Star Wars to make really amazing folk music that's consistent with the tradition of folk music. I know I just said a whole ton of stuff, but does any of that make
And I
sense?
agree with all of it. Oh yeah,
Okay.
100%. To me, the strength of it is that. I love that you said, mining that stuff, because that's what I spend so much of the writing process doing. Um, Banjo music is so convoluted in American history, right? It's a black art form. It came over as black musicians into America. It got picked up in the sort of hillbilly sort of the mountain areas of Appalachia, and it became this really beautifully sound voice of America. And I think anybody who had something to say could say it more so than with produced music. And to me, the parts of Star Wars that I love the most are not necessarily the Jedi stuff, or not necessarily the Solo and Skywalker stuff. I love the little bits of landscape that we get. That farmer who's desperately trying to pull moisture out of the air to survive, or I think of like dewback farmers, or somebody's out there skinning banthas and milking banthas. And what are these people worried about? What are they thinking about? And it's a way for me to talk about my feelings of modern politic, states of affair, working class, in a way that is a little bit more palatable. When we wrote punk music and we wrote stuff, and I've written comics before, I always worried that there was not enough hiding of layers. There wasn't enough there. And Star Wars, you're right, it's already built in. And so it's just like, okay, what's a kid on Tatooine going to complain about? Here it is. What's a song for a scared rebel? Or what's a song that's going to work as a recruitment song? And what's going to really get somebody to get into the, what are you listening to get into the cockpit of an X-Wing to go against a Death Star? Like, surely you need more than just a friend going, hey, good luck. There's got to be something. And I don't know. Did you read the Alphabet Squad books by Alexander Freed?
No, I'm familiar with it though. I had read the old Michael Stackpole series
Oh my God,
in the
those are
90s.
tremendous.
Yeah.
So Stackpole would bring up, like, invent bands for the characters to listen to. And Alexander Freed did the same thing with a character named Chasna Chaddock. And when I was putting this all together, she is a character who collects hollow discs of bands. And I was like desperately trying to figure out what that would sound like, or what would drive somebody beyond just, a John Williams soundtrack. And to me, they would be singing songs that meant stuff to them. These are people fighting for their homes, and these are people fighting for their livelihoods against a government that, it's a fascist government. And that's when people's voices become the most powerful. I was listening to your Andor episode, getting into Andor episode, and I recently started reading the works of Simone Weil, who was a philosopher during World War II, and she ended up starving herself to death because she got sick and couldn't go back to help people escape out of Europe. But she had this theory that there's no such thing as good; there's only balance and evil. And to me, that's, you don't have to be perfect to fight the empire. You don't have to be holier than thou. You just have to know that what you're being fed is wrong and what it's bullshit, and push back in even the smallest way. And music is one of the most capable ways of getting that frustration and anger out. And if you can get people to laugh and toe tap and hum, then it's all the better. So
Yeah, I mean, that's another reason why utilizing Star Wars is so great, because it is fun. Like sort
mhm.
of on first glance, it's inherently humorous because it's giving this fictional universe this taking it seriously. But then the reason I was really attracted to your music is because, frankly, the songwriting, I showed up for the, hey, Star Wars folk music, that sounds fun. I'll see what that's like. And then I heard the words, and then, I bought the songbook, which I love, by the way. I bought one for me and one to send to a friend of mine as a gift.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's
so,
tremendous. Thank you.
but yeah, I was surprised how potent, for lack of a better word, the writing was, because, similarly to you, I think a lot about the times that we're living in, and there's, a lot of uncomfortable resonance with what I thought were parables in Star Wars that would never really have much real world application. And then all of a sudden, haha, you might be living through it. So I'm just so fascinated with how, like you were saying, you can use Star Wars to be disarming and still say exactly what you mean. You can say things like, the only good imp is a dead imp, right? Whereas if you were to say, like, the only good fill in the
Yeah.
blank is a dead one, people get their hackles off. You can't necessarily sing that in polite company, right? So it's just really incredible how you can express those things and get them out in a real way. The passion behind the performance is clearly real, but it's sort of one step removed, so it kind of makes it more accessible.
I mean, like you said, with Star Wars in general, there's a lighthearted humor to the whole thing, which can kind of temper all the ideas that you're pushing through. Um, I think that was actually one of the first things I tried to convince him of in the first place. Was he was originally taking this very seriously,
Mhm.
and not that we don't take it seriously, but like there's a humor to it that actually makes it better. And I think
Yeah.
when he finally, like, when it clicked, he was like, "Oh, that's right. We want people to have a good time. We want them to hum along and sing and laugh at stupid jokes. But at the same time, they're getting songs about dead imps and fascism."
Yeah. Anti-fascism.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. The humor, the mixture really is exactly right. You did somehow, I think, thread that needle of, there's just enough kind of irreverent humor that, I mean, again, there's some humor inherent to treating Gungans and Ewoks and all of these, imaginary creatures as real. You don't shy away from that. But the core of it, the heart of what you're making music about, is there.
And that's something that is a process. We write, the first couple songs were adding and filling out stuff that was already created. But as we've gone beyond that, we've really become sort of a writing troupe. I show up, I'll be like, okay, these are lyrics. These are the lines that I will die on. And these are the lines that are totally up for rewrites and grabs. And it helps. Certainly the fact that we all get along so well brings out a lot of that humor, but you're right. It's, for every song we have about rising up and overthrowing, we've got a song about Max Rebo. And we have a lot of conversations about how much to bring. Like, I don't want to be a band that sings, not that I have anything against the ones that do, but I don't want to be a band that sings about like Darth Maul and Luke Skywalker and make up songs about those characters. I want, and you guys both agree, I believe, that we want this to be as in universe as possible.
Right.
And a band of our caliber would collect songs, but we might not be knowing who Maul is, or we might not know who Chewbacca is. And so therefore the people we choose to sing about have been chosen very, very carefully to give it that sense of, I don't know,
Je ne sais quoi.
the je ne sais quoi. But to give, yeah.
I was just going to say, and we can go into this in more detail later, but we are who we are, but we also have, as cheesy as it sounds, we do have characters. So
Yeah.
we have separate
Right.
characters with separate names, And those characters in and of themselves exist within the Star Wars universe. We're not main characters. We've never interacted with main characters. We're not in the movies. And there's a purpose to that. But that also allows us to think of these songs from a character's perspective rather than our personal, even though we do have personal feelings and the songs are about very real life things that are happening. The characters themselves feel like they are playing a part within a specific period of time, and that time is in the Andor timeline, Rogue One, in that time frame. And we've even spoken about just keeping the music minimal as well, because that in and of itself lends one banjo, one guitar, one cardboard box. Essentially, our characters have to get up and move. Right, we're part of the resistance. If we're having a rally somewhere and we're playing music and our hiding place is found, we need to get up and out. So there's more layers of realism than just the lyrics and the songwriting. It's the characters. We sort of embody that and try to put that into the music as well.
Yeah.
Totally. That is something that I was going to ask you about, because maybe around Halloween, you posted to your social media. I don't know if it was a photo shoot or what, but you guys were dressed in very Star Warsy looking regalia. That, like, the role play aspect of this is also very cool.
But so hard to explain to loved ones. It really is.
No, hey, man, I have a lot of passions and I'm used to not being understood, having to explain myself. But so I guess on that note, could you reintroduce yourselves, but as your alter ego personas in the Star Wars universe?
So I am Excellent Strum.
Kyer Hammerland.
And Jex Zartini.
And we are part of the Burgundy Squadron.
Yes. I hail from Tatooine. I grew up on a moisture farm not far from the Lars homestead. And to be honest, when you grow up on Tatooine, that's all you ever hear about are the Skywalkers. And it's hard enough to make a living on Tatooine, never mind a name for yourself. So at an early age, I got to go to Coruscant, and I studied in the halls of collections, basically a library of Congress, if you would, of recordings. And when the Empire came in and my coworkers started vanishing, then it took me a while, but I was, I think when my Oster Brath, who was my mentor and my main collector, when he disappeared, that was when I had to get out of Coruscant. And so I went looking for a pilot and a ship to get the hell out of there.
And I was the captain.
Yes, of the Ronto Call.
Yeah.
And my character was just a wee lad when the Empire attacked Coruscant. So my family was poor. We lived on level 2112 of Coruscant, down in the deep depths. So after, my parents were perished in the attack, I was a scavenger, worked on electronics, etc. Ended up working and rigging some of the gambling machines there. I got in bad with the Hutts, but also you wanted to get off the planet. I had no more connections. My parents were dead. I ended up rigging the Ronto's call and quote unquote fixed it. And that's how I ended up on the ship with these two guys here. And now we travel the galaxy doing what we do.
Yep. And we ended up for a while running Radio Free Alderaan, which was was a pro-rebel propaganda machine. But essentially, we tried to disrupt as many Imperial signals as humanly possible with noise, volume, and defiance. And so,
Noise, volume, and defiance. Is that what you said?
Noise, volume, and defiance.
This is a lot deeper than you thought it was, wasn't it?
No, I love this so much. I can't properly express it. Great names, by the way. It's like that, once again, like as with the humor and the drama, like in Star Wars, there's a balance you have to strike, and you can't always explain what it is, but that certain, je ne sais quoi, it's like, well, this name sounds sci-fi, and this name sounds too, North American or whatever, but this name, I don't know why, but it sounds Star Wars, right?
There's a science to it. I'm not really a technology person. So for me, I would rather have us look silly making real stuff, like having our names be self-selected or chosen and having them sound a little off, then go to one of the generators. And I think there are people out there who use those generators, and God bless them, and they're welcome to it. It's just not a path that we chose. And so I think for us, it's about, it sounds so hokey to say it, but it's about authenticity. Like, we want to be, these are the versions of ourselves that would exist in that universe, I think.
Yeah, one of the things that I think really got me, and you just articulated it, is that this isn't a gag, right? Like, it's
We're
not a
having
joke.
fun, right? No, God, no.
Yeah.
We take. Well, what were we saying? We had said it before that we don't take our seriousness very seriously. Live, we're constantly making jokes. We're constantly being humorous, or at least we think we are.
We try to make jokes.
We try to make jokes within the music, but it is all 100% earnest. Like, and I think that's what makes comedy work in a way, as well as, like, if I get up there and scream, I'm just another person on the internet screaming. But if we can do stuff that is endearing, brings people in, makes them comfortable, feeling welcome, feeling like they can joke around with us, then suddenly our message becomes a little bit more succinct and hits the people we need it to hit. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say it's awfully hard to sing a song with a refrain like "I wish I was an Ewok in a tree," and have there not be any humor to it. You know,
I keep going back to the Max Rebo song,
Yeah, right.
which is, he's like the patron saint of all Star Wars music, and so he's a hero of ours. Never had a chance to see him live,
No.
but do have a couple of his recordings, and it's just a chance to, like, break away. Both of us, well, all three of us, we're older statesmen. We're not kids, and we've been through serious bands, and we've been through serious art and all that stuff. And this is a chance just for us to blow off steam, have fun. My therapist thinks this is the greatest thing on the planet. He's like, what a way for you to handle the next 4 years is to just mock it from a Star Wars point of view. And I the second he said that, it was like, okay, here come the whole next couple songs. So it's been really a healthy way of dealing with a lot of the bullshit. So when Andor struck and came out, like, that to me opened up a legion of things to talk about and move away from that sort of Skywalker arc, where it was like, okay, now we have street level people who we care about. And I think that, I don't know, my Star Wars is weird Star Wars. I love the kooky stuff and the strange stuff, but it really speaks to that anti-authoritative, anti-fascist side of me that I grew up espousing and still very much believe in. And it's a great way to handle it and take the piss out of it at the same time.
I totally agree. And yeah, that was one of my questions. So you said that this whole thing came together pretty quickly. And strangely, I don't know exactly why, but I kind of got that sense when I stumbled upon you guys. I think because I immediately went to YouTube and I looked at the backlog of when everything was published, and I was like, oh, I feel like I might be sort of here nearish to the beginning of this, which was surprising because it really did feel like it was something that had existed for a while.
So I had tried at the start a couple of different things. The songbook was one path. I had a Substack where I really tried for kind of like a Alan Lomax. He worked for the Library of Congress collecting music from around the country. And I tried to chronicle the songs that we were writing in that format. Nothing really hit as an independent project until I started working with Mike and Chris. But for me, Andor was where it came together. And we've joked about, doing a set in the Andor, and the Narkina prison garb. If I had my druthers, we would dress like the honor guard for the Daughters of Ferrix. There does come a line, like, what do we want versus what the audience understands?
Sure.
Not everybody thinks about Star Wars 24 hours a day, I discovered while working on this project, which I think is a crime. But so when we talked about it, I was like, oh, we should do an Arcana thing. And it was like, well, okay, but that limits. This project has been described as niche on numerous occasions, which I'm now wearing like a badge of honor. But it's a line that we still discuss, like, what does stage gear look like? We've been adding more and more. We just started adding trooper buckets, like in Mandalorian, when you go back to Mos Eisley and they're all hanging there. So we started adding trooper buckets. But it's a line that we're not quite sure where we're at yet. I think that's going to be our next big hurdle, is what does the audience understand? So far, we've been really fortunate that our audiences have been awesome. The big fun of everything is getting people to sing along and breaking down that wall between performer and audience, that it's an experience we invite you to be part of. Excuse me. And I think it was the last time we played, and I don't know if it was you, Chris, or you, Mike, but we just played a show in December, and we decided to do it completely acoustic. We told the sound guy, take the rest of the night off, shut down all the mics, and we brought everybody in as close as they could come and performed circled by people. To give it that kind of, I think the practical reasoning for it was it made it feel like we were in a bunker. It made it feel like this was life on the run, and this is what you're going to get. Here's our 40-minute set, and now we've all got to go grab our stuff and go shoot an ATT down. ATT, down. That to me is huge. Is giving people an experience as well as 40 minutes of fun.
Yeah, and I think it was even at that show where some of the other bands, I think, were even skeptical, because they were, we had a single person act that was playing, his style of, I would say, emo style music, maybe some pop rock, etc. And then we had a two-piece noise metal band that was one of the loudest bands I think I've ever heard play in that small area. And then there was us just sitting in a room with everyone standing, just a few feet in front of us. And again, I think people were skeptical at first, but then we were done playing, and I think Chris was talking to one of the other members of that metal band, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, I totally get it now." He's like, "I didn't know what was going on with the Star Wars and the folk thing." He's like, "But I get it. You guys are the music that plays when everyone's getting like ready to go fight. Mm-hmm. Like that's exactly what we're aiming for. We want them to be rally songs and fight songs, like you said. So there is that seriousness to it where, we want that feeling. We want that excitement that's building up to something, but you don't quite know what it is yet. There's an uncertainty to it, right? I'm sure when they were about to go to battle with the Empire, they didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what was going on. There's kind of that, hey, come down here and sit with us and watch three old dudes play some folk music about Star Wars, but they don't know what it's about. And then by the end of it, they get it, and we curate the songs and we curate the set, and it builds up a certain way, and there's a rhythm to it. And by the end, most people get it. They'll come up to us and say, hey, that was awesome. Now I understand. Now your costumes make sense. Now the music makes sense. This all makes sense now. It's starting to, the pieces are falling together,
That's really incredible. And I'm sure that must feel very gratifying. I think you guys have got some magic going on. I really, really do. I really think, again, like I'm just a huge, huge fan. And I'm trying to not, fangirl out over here.
Well, it's your show. You can do whatever you want.
Fair enough. You said something, Erik. Well, oh my God, I have so many new questions. I'll try to whittle it down so it makes some kind of sense. We've been dancing around this, but it seems like our views about the political situation are somewhat aligned. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering if anyone who maybe voted for that guy has listened to your music and is into it.
Ah,
I would say yes.
yeah,
On a
I'm
surface
sure.
level.
I'm sure it has to have happened.
Yeah.
But I'm writing first and foremost for fans of Star Wars. I love folk music. I would be playing folk music if it wasn't. I'd still be writing folk music if it wasn't for this project. But so much of folk music is about pushing back, and so much of it is about speaking a truth. And for me, that truth is fairness, equality, justice, peace, love, all that stuff. And I grew up. My dad was a pastor. He was a very liberal Lutheran pastor. I grew up in the church, and his big thing was always welcome, and that was it. That was his religious doctrine, was welcome. And that's kind of my doctrine going into this. If you want to sit down and listen to our music and enjoy it, I just ask that people don't co-opt it and turn it into something it isn't. I'm writing rebel music. I'm writing music that is a pushback, but it's a celebration of also the fun side of Star Wars. We have a song, one of my favorite songs is Jackie, which is set to a Ramones tune. And like, I have feelings about the Acolyte. People had feelings about the Acolyte. They're probably not the same feelings, but Jackie was a standout character and worthy of celebrating. And I got so excited by her character that I had to write about her. And that's kind of ultimately what I like. The people we talk to about Star Wars are celebrants. We may not, and I don't think it's required that you love everything. You and I, Josh, probably don't love all the same parts of every Star Wars, and for me, I celebrate the stuff in Star Wars that I feel most passionately about. And I'm lucky because I've got two guys with me who feel either indifferent or very much the same way. I know that we're not all on the same level of fandom. You're more of a casual fan, Chris.
You're calling me out.
I am.
You filthy casual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chris
I mean,
can't name all the planets alphabetically.
So here's the thing. I would be considered a casual fan compared to someone who listens and thinks about it 24/7 and writes songs about it and has 17 new songs every time we practice. So yes, I'll be casual compared to that.
How about you, Mike?
I'm right in the middle. I'm right in the middle. Yeah, there's Star Wars I love. There's Star Wars I don't love. But I think what's great about this and is the era where our characters exist is my favorite era of Star Wars. So I think that as far as me buying into this project, I mean, it's so easy to fall into this, because it's the grittiest, it's the most realistic, time era, whatever verbiage you want to use in the Star Wars timeline in that universe, so it's much more rooted, much more.
Yeah, I like that. I like the grittiness of it.
Yeah.
It feels the most lived in.
Yeah.
And I think that, we spend most of our practices just goofing around and laughing and trying to make music that we want to listen to. And I think that really helps, is that we have our messages. And so if you don't believe with us politically, if you're not in the same camp, I hope you find something in the music that you
I would
enjoy.
say at the end of the day, the enjoyable part of it is that the Star Wars parts of the songs are the beginning and entry level. And if you want to go deeper than that, there's a lot deeper than that to go. But even just at the surface level of fun Star Wars fight songs, its own thing is it's enough.
And if you really want to go deep, there's quotes from Repo Man. There's quotes from The Clash. You can spend I sweat blood over these lyrics. Now's my chance to talk about it.
He's not lying.
I really try to layer them. I'm one of those people who loves deep cuts. I love digging and just playing with little allusions and references. In my mind, I think everybody gets them, but I actually think it's better that people don't. You know, I love the idea of somebody listening to this after a year and going, hey, did he just say do a crime? That's from Repo Man. Why is he quoting Repo Man? I wear the things that I love very proudly on my sleeves, and I want to honor the people who I'm stealing from. You know, Alex Cox, George Lucas, all the directors for Andor and stuff like that. Like, I think that that's some great writing. I mean, getting back to Andor, one of the songs that's been giving me the biggest problems, I've been trying to write a Marva song for the past year, because there's just so much in her final speech, and all of it falls short of the reality of what she's saying. And so that's kind of my bullseye. If I can get a song that sort of sums up what she's saying, then I feel like I've done what I needed to do. But I do want to celebrate the weirdness. I do want to celebrate, you know, Cry at Dragons and Huts and Ewoks. Like, freaking A, Ewoks are ridiculous. But I remember being like 10 years old in the theater watching Ewoks going, this is a thing that we're getting. And now they're one of my most favorite things on the planet. I don't know why. I love the idea of these sort of, I don't know. Did you read the Certain Point of View books by any chance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, the xenobiologist view of Ewoks and the stuff that was on Hoth with the Tauntauns and the Wampa. That to me is like, I love that shit. I think I could read that stuff all day long. I love it.
So first of all, thank you for very organically answering a question that in my list here was supposed to be my first question about your various Star Wars fandoms, levels of fandom, such as they are. And I do have to say, I think the balance you have is actually very good. Like, I think if you were all, you know, if you were all 24/7 Star Wars fans, then you might not have that, the perspective to be like, wait a second, we also want to make music that people like, right? So like, so where
That's
is
my
that?
job.
Seriously, that's
my
why
job.
Mike was brought in.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike and I had been searching, I think we said it before, for years for a project. We had tried doing podcasts together. We had tried making comics together, trying to do a whole bunch of things. And I have always been fortunate that the friends I choose to surround myself with are creative people. And one thing I love about creative people is when one project doesn't work out or if it doesn't click, you just move on. You're like, okay, this isn't working. So you ended up doing a podcast for a few years with some
Right.
friends of yours as a result.
Right.
And so like when I went to Mike originally, it was like, I know I can rely on you. I know where you are mentally. And it was the same thing with Chris with guitar. It was like, I know what to expect from your performances. I know what to expect with your attitude. I know what to expect with how much you're going to clown around versus how much you're going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
And to me, on all three levels, we're all people who can have a good laugh. I mean, it's a space show about laser swords and people in Halloween masks. But there's something so compelling and something so wonderful and something so beautiful and wholesome in Star Wars that it was a chance for me to celebrate it. And I've been a lifelong fan, quite literally. My dad took me in 1977 to go see it. And we went to every opening until he died. And so for me, it's a chance for me to rekindle that sort of nostalgia, that old feelings, that family, that love of the galactic and the special and the wonderful and the beautiful and the astonishing, if you will, but also to make music with friends and to work through a lot of what we're all experiencing at arm's length. I don't have the guts to be a Johnny Rotten. I don't have the guts to be a Joe Strummer. But I sure as hell have the guts to be a Kyer Hammerland and sit up there with a banjo and talk about what's bothering me in this metaphorical, allegorical way. And that to me is what it's all about. And the fact that we spend more than half our time laughing, although we were trying to be very serious for this podcast because we listened to a lot of your other stuff, Josh, and we're like, he's always so learned and so like it's really great stuff. Yeah, we can't get up here and tell fart jokes like we usually do.
Well, I really appreciate that, but I like to think that I have a leg in both worlds. I'm not above a good fart joke.
Okay, good. Yeah, then Mike, go for it. Let her rip.
Let her rip. Let her
I
rip.
don't have it in me. I don't have it in me.
But you said something, Eric. You said it was important to you to be welcoming, or that's something that was instilled in you. And in like the Star Wars context, it was clear to me that your attitude is that like there's Star Wars I connect with more than other Star Wars, but I don't judge anyone for what variety of Star Wars they respond to if it's not the same as mine. And I think that's sort of, snobbery or gatekeeping or whatever you want to call it is like kind of antithetical to the whole thing. So when that song Rebel Scum, what you said was the first song that you wrote?
Correct, yeah.
Just a very subtle thing, but the lyrics from Rick's Road to Coruscant, Kessel to Naboo, the Empire's got the numbers, but we hit what we shoot. Remember Alderaan, keep Jedha in your heart. The Bombad Ibs can't stop us because their Death Star done blowed up. Like, you're referencing the Gungans next to Jedha, the origins of which are from movies, I think you'll agree, with wildly different tones. So that showed me, it let me know that you're inclusive of all of it. And I love that you wrote a song about Jackie, because that was another thing. I was like, okay, he clearly loves what I love, but that's not the only thing he likes, which I appreciated a lot.
Well, thank you for that. I grew up, by the time I was like in high school, most Star Wars was done. It was a couple of the Timothy Zahn books, and there were whispers and rumors of things, but Star Wars was pretty much over when I was a kid. And so to me, everything is extra innings. All Star Wars is just bonus material. And I'm so happy for it, and I'm so glad for it. Good and bad, I think that nobody wants to be told that their favorite Star Wars sucks. And I tell this to my students all the time too. I'm like, none of you came to school today to be bullied. None of you came here today hoping, man, I hope someone singles me out and makes me feel like trash. And I think that's an important lesson in life. Go where find your groups, find your people. And I think Star Wars people, I think the internet did a lot to divide Star Wars. I think early fan magazines, people shared negative opinions and stuff like that, but you had to search that stuff out. Now you look at a picture of Neil and there's like, okay, well, Neil's bad because everybody loves Neil.
Everyone
but
loves
like,
Neil. He's great.
So you find something from The Acolyte and you get people bashing it on all levels, people loving it, people getting it. It doesn't, I don't care. I'm sorry for the people who have to impose their Star Wars on everybody else. I was a music snob for most of my life. I would be the first one to tell you to name 5 songs.
Never
mind. Still am.
I was just going to say, we just had a conversation.
Your music. No, but I teach high school, and for me, like, this is a long story, and I'm sorry, I'm going to cut it down. But like, I had a young girl in one of my classes who loved when Justin Bieber was huge. Her family situation was dire. They didn't have enough money. She got an extra school job. She worked her ass off, saved all her money, went to Justin Bieber, came back wearing Justin Bieber sweatshirt, hat, wristband. I mean, she had everything. She spent a fortune, and the kids were picking on her about it. And I'm watching it and thinking to myself, holy crap, this girl loves this performer so much that she went out and got an extra job so she could see them perform, so she could have 2 hours of happiness in an otherwise very complicated life. Who the hell am I to tell her she hasn't earned that 2 hours? Who the hell am I to say that that's wrong? And after that, it just sort of removed the scales from my eyes, if you would. And it became like, all right, well, you love Phantom Menace. Awesome. Terrific. Great.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, I mean, we have a group chat with everybody that's in the Burgundy Squadron, and there's over 60 of us now, and we often talk about the biggest haters of Star Wars are Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
They pick
Mhm.
everything apart, and what I like about the group that we're in is because our characters are those ragtag background denizen characters, and they're all original characters. We're just living in our universe. Yes, we're in the Star Wars universe, but there's nothing to nitpick. We're all in the same group, you know? So yeah, we're part of the Star Wars universe, but we love it for what it is.
Warts and all.
Yeah, and take it or leave it, good, bad, you know, whatever you think is great or terrible. The point of this in this band and in the Burgundy Squadron that we're in is just whatever you love about Star Wars is what you love, and everyone has a mutual respect. No one's there to pick anybody apart. You know, everyone's offering advice. You know, it's a very close knit community, and the people that come to see us, I think, because it is so real and organic. They may not get it at first, but by the end, you know, we already talked about it, that they get it. You know, it makes sense. There's no, oh, you guys are a bunch of Star Wars nerds playing some stupid folk music. It makes sense, you know.
That sounded really practiced. Have you done that before?
Yeah, I mean, I have to prepare myself for what people are going to say when we're done playing. So
far, we've had pretty solid responses, even from absolute strangers, which has been really wonderful. So, you know, the fact that you're making these connections and recognizing what we've been attempting to do is a huge honor. It means to us that what we're trying for is landing in some capacity. And so, Josh, when you reached out a couple months ago and we started talking, at first it was like, wait, is he serious? Like, I'm like, you're mentioning, you know, you're saying all these really wonderful things. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go with this. He's being serious. And we started, you know, sharing some stuff back and forth. And I think that for me, you've put your finger on exactly what we're trying to do. It's a really fine balance between being serious, you know, AARP punks, and celebrating a movie that was originally designed just as box office entertainment. But I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned. And I think for me, Star Wars has always been about community. You know, when I was in college and Star Wars was the thing that you got yelled at or made fun of for enjoying before its big, you know, resurgence.
And what was that resurgent movie? Was it The Phantom Menace?
It was The Phantom
was
Menace.
fantastic.
I actually think it was maybe the special editions
Yeah,
Yeah, could be.
and the time leading up to the Phantom Menace.
that was
sure,
huge.
right.
Oh, back when the figures started coming back, I took dates to Toys R Us to look for toys. Oh my
God
God!
bless
Why
you.
did that
God
memory
bless
come
you.
back?
A man after my own
Oh.
heart. No, in my parents' house, which every day that goes by, I'm amazed they haven't threatened to throw it on my shit. But I have the figures from that era.
Yep.
It's all in boxes. Yeah, like there was that moment, late 90s and the early 2000s, like where there was that resurgence. And, you know, like you were talking about the Zon stuff and like the Dark Empire comics. And kind of along with that grunge moment in the early 90s, there was something sort of grunge about the Dark Empire.
Oh, those heavy muddy colors, the real
Yeah,
sharp
yeah.
lines.
Yeah, and it was like a little like brooding, and it was like I think that was the moment where Star Wars started to work its way into pop culture slowly but surely, but in a way that like resonated for the time.
I would even say for me, when I noticed it coming back, like when I first felt like, holy shit, all those years of nerddom are finally paying off, was Clerks.
Oh,
When they're
yeah.
having the discussion about the Death Star and the freelance workers. And I was like, oh my God, wait, there's
Someone
people
else.
who talk about this in public.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
you know, you grow up listening to The Clash or the Sex Pistols or Black Flag or Circle Jerks or Descendants, and you wear sort of the armor of that, the skunk stripes. And it said like, okay, here I am, but I also maybe have an edge, even though I'm just as scared shitless as you are. But nerddom was like, you show up to a party in a Wolverine shirt and suddenly everyone's like, what the hell? Like, you're not scary. And so that Clerks moment for me was huge. The power of the Force figures, though, when Luke was all jacked.
Yeah, the physiques were a little off. Yeah.
It was really unsettling. I mean, Leia had done a lot of reps.
It was the 90s.
She was,
right?
Bench pressing for sure.
But I can remember the excitement of running to like, Kmart when Allentown was where I went, and I would be like, holy shit, this is like I got the trooper figure, and I run back, or, Leia in disguise.
One of my fondest memories as a kid was going to Chicago to visit my aunt, who I never saw. And she was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to go to Sears because I want to see if you have different Star Wars figures than I have in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I don't think you're that much of a casual. I gotta be honest.
I don't read anything.
Comparison.
I haven't read anything. I watch the movies and the shows. That's where it's my toys were when I was a kid.
Everything I do is research.
Sure.
It's all tax deductible.
And then obviously we all thought that, well, I mean, in 99 and the early 2000s, Star Wars transformed itself into something that there was stuff there that I liked, but I sort of didn't really have that connection that I had to the original stuff when I was a kid. And then in 2005, I thought Star Wars was over. So I was like, okay, maybe this is something that is in my past. And then Star Wars obviously returned, and like some of my favorite Star Wars stories have come recently. And I just think it's really incredible. But I'm going to try to tie this up very succinctly, which is not my strong suit. You said something about the DIY and the handcrafted stuff and grittiness. And something that made Star Wars special was like the scarcity of it. It's like, we had these 3 movies. And then we had, there started to be some more comics and some novels every few months. And it was like, okay, cool. But like you really wanted it, and you were yearning for it and waiting for it. And I think in the world now, we have just so much of everything that I think there is kind of a need or a want to return to some of the older, slower, more handcrafted, even if it's not perfect. But the handcrafted nature and the scarcity of it is what's attractive. And your music and all the amazing stuff around it, the storytelling, the care that you obviously, like, I love this handcrafted zine nature of the songbook. And just everything that you guys have put out, it's very clear that a lot of care and craft went into it. And that speaks to a need that I have in this, year of our Lord 2025, when like we have new Star Wars, so much new Star Wars, so much new everything coming at you all the time. And I think that there's something really, really cool and really special on top of how good the music is about that handmade authenticity that I think infuses all the stuff that you do. And that's really cool.
Thank you. I would love to say it was a totally conscious thing. I'd be like, oh yeah, but it just it feels right the way we are crafting everything. I think all 3 of us believe that if you want to do something, one of the best ways to get it done is to make it yourself. And the stuff that's worth having, the friendships, the relationships, they're struggles, there's nothing in this life that is appreciated if it comes super easy, I think. And I think that, working to make music, working to hang out with your friends, making time, letting people know that they're important. I never thought that those would be revolutionary acts. And it feels more and more like it is. And I think, I don't know, for me at least, it's worth putting in the time, because what I'm getting out of it, what we're getting out of it, and this is getting really sappy, I'm sorry guys, is that it's all the care of something that we love. You know, I mean, Lucas, the reason Star Wars is better than 98% of other science fantasy stuff that came out is the time and effort, the seriousness and the ridiculousness. I mean, you have a scene in Return of the Jedi where they're bartering for a man's life and we get time for a lounge act. You know, it's like, let's take a break and listen to this Muppet sing for a few minutes, and then we'll get back to saving a human being. And I think Lucas set up some of that. You know, A New Hope is full of snide remarks and humorous little beats and breaks, but it's really about overthrowing space Nazis, and that's huge. You've got to keep your humanity. You've got to keep the bits of life that are enjoyable and the things that are fun. And, you know, we're a rebel band, and that's exactly what we do. And that's how we fight. You know, I said it.
Well, it takes a rebel band.
It takes a rebel band to sing a rebel song. That's a new one that's coming out. But we ended up, you know, I go always back to John Lydon, John Rotten. You know, I'm not good with violence, but I'm good with words. And that's what I choose to fight with. I'm useless in a fist fight. I'll run faster than anybody. But mouthing off, yeah, I can do that.
And one thing, and one thing now, and to go back to your you know, your reference to media saturation. You know, I think what's happening now, and yeah, there's a lot of Star Wars, and to keep it Star Wars focused, and you know, around this. I think I myself am appreciating more of the more recent content, just knowing that the stuff that's being written and produced now is from folks that grew up with Star Wars. So it's not just Star Wars again. You know, it's Star Wars with, you know, not to say that back then it wasn't mature folks, but it was a new thing, right? They didn't quite know what they were, and they knew what they were doing, but didn't quite know what was going to happen with Star Wars. Now, Star Wars is a big thing. Now you've got folks that have grown up with it, and they're putting a modern spin on it, and it is more topical, and it is more modern as far as, you know, the topics that are being discussed. And then for us to sort of be writing music that's sort of centered around that in the time that we're in, with the style of music being folk punk, it makes it easier to just sit down and just play the music. It just sort of comes out, you know, and, you know, it's not a secret that Erik is certainly the one behind the lyrics, but what we try to do is keep it grounded, you know, and we will collaborate on the lyrics and make sure that it makes sense. There needs to be feeling behind it. It can't just be Star Wars all the time. Star Wars. There needs to be real life connections in there. And I think the shows also mirror that, and we're sort of going along with kind of where Star Wars is going right now. You know, it's a lot more mature. It's a lot darker. You know, and it makes you feel something other than, you know, bad guy bad, good guy beat bad guy. There's more to it, you know, similar to we were talking about the layers and the lyrics. How deep do you want to go? You know, sort of tying everything together there.
Yeah, I think that's very well put.
Yeah.
You know, this started out as my project, but it is no longer my project. It's our project. And, you know, Chris and I went away at the beginning of October and worked on stuff for a weekend on a trip that we usually take. And, you know, Mike and I will get together and work on stuff, and the two of them will talk about stuff. And I think it's really important that everyone feels like they own a third of the band, because like keeping it at that level keeps us serious, keeps us trained, but it also allows us to stray and to be goofy and to come back and say, okay, hear me out. This is a song about the showdown between Greedo and Han, and I'm not going to mention either of their names except in bad puns. So here we go. And going, okay, well, this one lands and this one doesn't, and landing on something, or Chris going, you guys, I have an awesome intro for this. And then he'll play something. It's like, all right, that's your intro now. That's how we want this. And it just works for us. I don't know how other people necessarily work. I've worked the opposite way, where I've been like, this is my show, and it's never been as much fun. Right, Chris? Agree with me, damn it.
Yeah, there's as someone who has had some successful creative collaborations and some less successful creative collaborations, it's tricky and you have to figure it out. It's a different dynamic every time, but I think that you're exactly right. Like you have to have that sense of ownership of your part of it to feel like
Mhm.
it's not just in service of someone else's vision. It's a collaboration because, in anything creative and certainly music, you're putting a piece of yourself out there. So if you're going to
Yeah.
do that, you got to feel invested in it, I think.
I think 100%. I mean, look, we're adult males, we're adult people. And to get up there in Star Wars clothes and to play Star Wars music takes a certain amount of, I don't know,
I think balls is the
balls.
word. You're looking for.
Takes a certain amount of, we're doing this to make noise. We're doing this because this is what we want to do. And I think people either respond really well to that or don't know what to make of it. But we've been very fortunate. We've been really fortunate early out to connect with people on a level that they're aware of what we're doing. They know that we take our lack of seriousness seriously, and we've been really fortunate to have some really great support. Most of the naysayers don't know what to say because they're just like, well, it's weird. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
all right. I grew up being called weird. That's nothing new to me. So, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mike, you said something about how the people making Star Wars now grew up with Star Wars. And, when you were talking about the acolyte and the weird response, really made me feel like I was taking crazy pills or something, because like the level of hatred in certain corners of the internet from Star Wars fans for this show compared to the show that I saw, I'm like, what 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 is going on here? Because in so many ways, Star Wars fandom is kind of a front in like the culture wars, because there are very similar dynamics at play to what I'm seeing in like political discourse in our country, certainly, and the world also, to what I'm seeing in Star Wars fandom. And it's like, it's quite strange. And on that note, like, I like the Acolyte. I thought it was great. I didn't love it as much as I love some other things, but I was like, oh, like, there's a lot to chew on in here. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff in here, and I really want to see where it goes. So you've got me. I want to see more. Unfortunately, that won't be happening. But the creator, Leslie, I want to say her name correctly, Headland, I'm not sure how you say it. But, knowing that she was a genuine fan and had grown up with this and had a love of this world and these ideas, like just knowing that someone is making their Star Wars and it's coming from a genuine place. And it's like, hey, I have a take on this and I believe in this and I am putting myself in this. I can't imagine hating that, no matter what it was. Like,
Yeah,
I really don't get it.
I think
But
a lot of fandoms, eventually are a bus and eat their own tail. Marvel fans, back in like the post Claremont burn days in the 90s, started devouring themselves. Trek fans with the Kirk versus Picard fight. But I think you're right. There's no rabid, try to say this nicely, there's no sort of rabid assault like a Star Wars fan. And I honestly think I think that Acolyte had a lot to say. I think it was very clear with what it wanted to say, and I think there were people who were uncomfortable with some of those messages. For me, it didn't hit every mark, but who am I to think that TV has to be made for me? If I want something made, that's why fan fiction exists. Go write the stuff that you want to do, right? You want more music in the Star Wars universe? Go make more music in the Star Wars universe. It's a sandbox, and I think it was designed that way. There was a period where Lucas had that kind of view of play in it, have fun, enjoy the universe, enjoy the galaxy. And I would rather devote my time and energy to celebrating the people who can have fun and who can enjoy it. We talked about Burgundy Squadron earlier. I spend a lot of time talking to people who make costumes and who are making credits or sabacc decks and stuff that has no real marketability in the real world, but they're doing it because they love it. They're doing it because that's the part of Star Wars that they're going to engulf themselves in. And the other stuff, once you start doing that, doesn't matter as much. I'm not a fan ultimately of the prequels as much as I like everything else, but I just don't worry about that stuff, and I can appreciate it and I can say, okay, it exists and it's part of the lore and it's part of the legacy and I get it. But if I'm going to sit down and this will cause, I think, some problems, I'll watch Solo. I think Solo is my idea of perfectly weird, wonderful Star Wars movie. You've got robot rebellions, you've got sentient droids, right, fighting back, you've got slave mines, you've got all this stuff, but at the same time, you've got this cocky brat flying around the galaxy trying to get the attention of a girl. I think it's just wonderful and weird and beautiful.
I think Solo's pretty great, frankly.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's the problem with the internet nowadays is people pour too much emotion and energy into complaining about things they don't like. And it just becomes an echo chamber. But if you keep yourself out of that mindset and surround yourself with folks, and I'm going to get sappy here for a second. If you surround yourself with folks in a community that have nothing but positive things to say, because what they're doing is what you're doing, even though it may be a different medium. We're doing the music thing and we do have costumes. And like Erik said, there's other folks within our community doing other things that really don't have a real life application. We dress in costumes and play folk music and sing about Star Wars. We fill a niche that is for somebody. If someone wants to focus their negativity towards us, I mean, I don't know what your problem is, but go find
It's not your problem.
Sure, yeah, it's not my problem.
I'm going to keep doing we're going to keep doing what we do. And like I said, we've been,
as soon as someone says it sucks, I'm out.
Okay. Thank God.
For how long? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Does it matter who says you suck?
On that note, final two questions.
Yeah.
And you can answer this, all three of you, as either the real you in the real world or from the perspective of your persona within the Star Wars universe. But if you could play any show at any venue, what's the venue? What's the lineup?
Oof.
Wow.
I don't know. So the problem is we've always had a discussion trying to figure out where we just fit in general.
Where we belong.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's so hard to say because anytime we're put onto a bill, there's no other band that's like us. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, we're the best, no band is. There's other Star Wars bands, but they're all electric, they're metal, they're this, they're that. So we end up on a folk bill that we played.
Yep. Which was our strangest gig, believe it or not.
Which it was super weird. So
it's a room full of people who had no idea what the hell to do with us.
So we play folk music, but the other folk bands are super serious. But then we end up at another show with other Star Wars related acts, but they're all metal and we're folk. So I don't know. I don't even know where we would fit in, to be perfectly honest.
I honestly, so Kyer would answer, I would love to play with like Redline or Max Rebo or Dead Rebels or any of the classic sort of in-universe bands. Me, I would love, I love a basement show. We play this metal record store called Doomed Records a couple times a year. And those are some of my favorite shows because it's 20, 30 people, which to many, to any real band doesn't sound like a lot, but this is awful. They're not our friends showing up. Like our wives stopped coming. Right. And so, they went to the first couple shows. They were like, okay, we've heard what we hear you practice. We know what you've got. And so those are my favorite shows. I would love, honest to God, I would love to do a tour of like comic book stores or cons.
That's
I would love to
awesome.
do comic book stores. I would love to do a bunch
Yeah.
of comic book shops. I think that would be, to me, ultimate. How about you?
I don't know. I was thinking this like whole like, would you play with Joe Strummer?
Oh, well, yeah.
Type, like at ABC No Rio in 1982 or whatever. No, I think I'm with Kyra on this one. I think going to a tour of a combination of indie record stores and indie comic shops would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And who would we play with? Whoever they brought. I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah.
The weirder, the better.
Yeah.
Could just be us and our fans.
Well, that's very, very cool. If you guys are ever in Los Angeles, there's a Star Wars themed bar here. It's called Scum and Villainy.
Mm-hmm.
We follow them
um,
on Instagram. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you should definitely try to play a show there. And also, if you need a place to stay, I would love to help facilitate whatever you need,
Chris loves
basically.
sleeping outside. Do you have like a alleyway or something like that? Maybe not too raccoon infested. If that's, we're not putting you out.
If it's a nice raccoon,
If it's,
okay.
yeah, are they friendly? Where do they stand?
No, but seriously, there was a show that you posted about on social media not that long ago, and I was kind of like, damn, how much is a flight out there for the weekend if I could just go? Any closing thoughts? Anything that you wanted to say that you didn't say? Or
We have an EP hopefully coming out in March. We're doing you want to talk about it?
Okay, go for it.
So 6 songs, 5 and a bonus.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought it was 5 songs.
5 songs and a bonus.
Secret track.
Yeah. We're doing a cassette release.
I love it. I love it.
Taking it all the way back. A buddy of mine is named Rufus Dayglow, and he's drawn for Tank Girl and Judge Dredd and stuff like that. And he was going to do the cover art, but got behind and teaching some courses. So he put me in touch with a woman from Portugal named
Allura Illustrates.
Huh?
Allura.
Anna. Yeah.
Anna Lauro.
Anna Lauro. And the cover is, I think the cover is better than our music.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is a
friggin'
cover we
amazing.
don't deserve. It is absolutely stunning. I told her that we wanted something in the scheme of a rebel girl, a little bit of punk, a little bit of rebel, and what she gave us is going to be fantastic. And we'll have a cover reveal probably more towards February, but the hope is the packaging dream, and we're putting it together right
It's
now.
not a dream. It's
Actually happening.
coming to
We've got
fruition.
Is to make it like the Kenner action figures. So the backing card with the cassette with a character goes. So make sure you get a copy.
But you know that Vince McMahon meme?
Yeah, with the multiple frames where he just,
Yeah.
by the end he's falling. Yeah.
Well, everything you were saying, I was that. I was that meme.
Well, that's our hope. That's our goal.
That is super exciting. Someone who's listening to this, if they're still here, I assume they may have some curiosity or some interest in checking you guys out. So any recommendations for what song to listen to first, and how do people find you?
So don't go to Bandcamp.
Not yet,
If you want to order any of the zine stuff, by all means go to Bandcamp. But the track that's on Bandcamp was when I was just a solo thing.
I think the easiest thing to do is just to go to folk_the_empire on Instagram. Everything is located through there. We're connected. All 3 of us are connected through that with our own accounts. That's the easiest place to go. YouTube is also pretty decent to see some of the live stuff we've recorded. But I think we're going to give you a track. And I don't know if we decided what track we want to give. What
did you know?
I would think the first song to listen to personally is either Rebel Scum or Folk the Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We'll send one of those over.
I would say Rise Up.
You just don't want us to be fun.
That's a song where it's mostly just me. I would say Folk the Empire is probably the most enjoyable. We ask for a lot of crowd participation, and that is one that everyone kind of gets behind by the last verse. So I would start there, Rebel Scum or Folk the Empire.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I don't have anything more to add to that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Honestly,
this has been a really great time, and I'm sorry you have to edit all this.
It's all right. It's what I do. It's what I do.
The guys
Yeah.
originally were like, how long? And I'm like, I don't know, 40 minutes. So
Yeah.
if you are still listening in the audience, you are a trooper. And we really, we thank you, Josh, obviously. Getting in touch with you and chatting with you and talking with you has been huge. We really enjoy it. So thank you for your support. We really appreciate it.
I'm just a real big fan. And, thank you for your time. I could talk to you about, I have like a whole other set of questions, but
We can finish out the year, when December we'll pick
Do
back
another
up.
episode.
Yeah.
I'd love that.
All right.
Yeah, and we also have to talk about season 2 of Andor. So we'll have more. I'm sure that will give you more grist for the mill in terms of songwriting and stuff.
Oh, I'm so stoked. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really psyched. But yeah, thank you for participating in this this new season of Trash Compactor. Is sort of thematically about rebellion and resisting fascism and maintaining your humanity. No particular reason.
No particular reason. That's all we've got is our humanity. That's all we've got.
I really love what you guys do, and I really appreciate how generous you guys are with your time. And I have to say, having now interacted with you guys in person, you exceeded my expectations. I think all three of you are just wonderful, wonderful people, and I hope to see you guys live someday.
Oh, we hope
If you ever do decide to buy a plane ticket and come out east, you have a place to stay with me.
Yep.
I'll be out that way at some point, or maybe I can make a detour in Rhode Island. But thanks very much. And whatever song you're going to send me, listeners, enjoy as Folk the Empire plays us out.